Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Airspeed Reads Naruto video. This one's going to be for volume 63 of the manga, which is called World of Dreams. This is another 10 chapter volume. We cover 598 to 607, Demolition, Uchiha Obito, Why Not Sooner, Obito and Madara, Alive, Rehab, Reunion, and then Hell, World of Dreams, and It Doesn't Matter to Me. Cover is very nice on this one with Kakashi, Naruto, and Toby, who is of course in this volume revealed to be Obito. So very, very important stuff happens here. And you know, might be a minor thing, but the moon being right up there in the corner is a quite notable thing given something that is presented as being relatively... They don't put too much importance on it in this volume, but it does become quite important later on. So, this is an excellent volume. And again, it speaks to kind of what I've been talking about in recent volumes with when Kishimoto is focused, when he can just devote a couple of chapters in a row to telling a specific story, he is amazing. The only problems ever really come in Naruto are when he's trying to juggle like 5 or 6 plots at once, and how many pages to present about one plot while also advancing a second plot and stuff like that. That's where it kind of becomes a little bit messy, and you kind of just want, show me all the pages for this arc in a row. Here, there's only like 1, maybe 2 distractions from the Obito stuff. And even then, they are quite important given that Madara and Obito meet up within this volume. So this is a good way of like connecting like 2 of the arcs in a way together. So anyway, let's get into this volume. So with the first chapter, it's interesting in that, like the last chapter from the last volume, they don't really try to be overly secretive about kind of the reveal. They're definitely having you think about Obito. Without saying his name, and like back then and here, they are just alluding to like who from Kakashi's past died. That was very important to him. It's Obito. If you remember that stuff from, you know, just before the start of Shippuden, that big flashback when we got it, then you have Obito on your mind. But they don't reveal his name until the start of the second chapter, and the first chapter is basically just that Kakashi is distracted because he kind of feels that this is the reveal that's being presented. Guy and Naruto both have to kind of get him on board with this, and you know they're doing a lot of symbolic things, like showing it, like again, like I've constantly alluded to. Almost every time that they're in the scene together, they kind of tend to focus on the eyes, tend to focus on like, oh, Obito's eye, Kakashi's eye, and they're doing it again here as we get closer to the reveal. And the idea here is that this is going to be the engagement within the fight where they finally break Toby's mask and reveal who he actually is, what his face is, and see if they know who he is. And the way they do it is again with the Kamui technique, and like using the fact that he dodges, defends by using Kamui as well. And it seems like Kakashi misses with his Kamui by like basically, you know, the shadow clone popping. That's what it looks like. When in fact Kakashi has actually used Kamui on Naruto's shadow clone, and the clone is in the time-space dimension and just, you know, delivers a Rasengan basically right to the face of Toby here, and we get some really nice action panels in the time-space dimension as this happens. We don't quite get the look of his face just yet, but immediately then, okay, you've ended the chapter there. The mask is smashed. How do you actually have the full-on reveal happen? And if this is your first time reading it just in this collected volume, and you immediately turn the page and go back to like Obito flashback, chapter 599, Uchiha Obito, and you're just like, oh, like it doesn't take too much away from the reveal. I just think, why didn't they have a page set in the present day and have just the characters reacting to it being Obito? Like, why not have the last couple of pages from this chapter that happen here. Why not have them at the start, then show the flashback? That way the reveal is actually presented as a reveal, instead of like, okay, we have an idea that it's Obito, turn the page, oh, it's Obito. And then, like, after the flashback, we come out of the little flashback and it's like everyone reacting to it being Obito. I think it would have had so much more meaning if the manga did it where, like, it was, you kind of got this stuff at the start of just like, is that? And it's just like, yeah, that is a grown-up Obito, and just a reaction of like the shock that it's actually him. That, it's just something reading it there. I was just like, is that how they do it in the anime? Like, I can't really remember if they do it that way, where like the mask gets smashed, they go into flashback, then come out and the reveal happens. Or is it mask gets smashed, reaction, then flashback? Nothing like too serious, obviously. It's a really, really good reveal. It's a really impactful, huge reveal. Arguably the biggest reveal in the series up to now, in a way. There's been other ones for sure, but like, in terms of one that just instantly makes you like rethink about so many scenes that like Toby's been involved in. Now knowing that it was Obito, the impact that a lot of those scenes have, in that we know that it was this masked man who summoned the Nine Tails to lead to that attack, which led to the death of like Minato and Kushina. That's Obito's fault now. We know that like all that stuff with the Akatsuki, that was Obito that entire time. That like he says that he was the one who like it may seem like it was Yahiko and Nagato who invented the Akatsuki, but like he was the one who was presenting the ideas initially. So like that was Obito all that time. The reveal about like just from last chapter that like Itachi involved Toby in the massacring of the Uchiha clan. That was actually Obito as well. Obito killing the rest of his clan. And like that, and it's interesting to think about that, in that he's obviously presenting himself as Madara back then. That is kind of Obito acting as Madara, because Madara would hate his own clan for not supporting him, and him having to go it alone against the rest of the village. So him kind of doing that act as kind of part of the plan, and it's a fascinating reveal. And then the other thing that comes into play is obviously just like, okay, Obito's revealed to be alive, but now that we're remembering this flashback to Kakashi's old team, what about Rin? What about the girl on the team, Rin? Where is she? Is she alive? Is she dead? Is she not a ninja anymore? And that absolutely is brought into play. So I think Kishimoto plays this really, really well. I just would question about the decision to show flashback before the like full-on reveal that it's Obito comes out. Naming the chapter Obito and stuff like that. Just little things like that. I like that they kind of replay a lot of the flashback after that, in that one of the more notable ones is that they show like his last moments from that flashback of, I'm giving you my Sharingan, giving it to Kakashi. And then you kind of forget this at the time, because it's almost just assumed. Like the idea here is, this is the story of how Kakashi got his Sharingan. Now it has more meaning because you're thinking more about Obito, and it's like, wait, the last thing that Obito said before he died back then was to Kakashi, look after Rin for me. And where is she? Has he fulfilled this promise or not? And that is the kind of big reveal to kind of think about here. And it's just so interesting that he managed to kind of really kind of play with that, have it have so much more meaning now than it did before. And then immediately after you come out of the flashback, you get the idea that you let Rin die, so Obito knows what happened, and it's now this, is there some other tragic event in Kakashi's past that we don't know about, that he kind of caused this to happen. But the other thing with this reveal is obviously that, okay, it's Obito. He was revealed to be alive. He survived that being crushed by the rocks. Okay. Why is he now a villain? Because he was a shining light of the Uchiha clan in a way. He is a character who they've presented as basically being kind of like a Naruto, like a Nagato, those type of characters, who we've kind of seen, that kind of archetype of character. What has made him become almost the main villain of the entire series up to now? Something had to have really, really affected him, given that he's been basically, you know, like going back in time, like he's been a villain since like the birth of Naruto. Like Naruto's entire life, this guy's been a villain, because obviously the day Naruto was born was the day he summoned the Nine Tails into the village and attacked, and he had to have been a villain from even, you know, at least a good bit before that. So, you know, there's a lot of questions you have here about, like, did he just survive that, you know, the getting crushed, and then somehow experience what happened to Rin, and it sent him on this spiral? But they go into that, like, Hishimoto is aware that that is the question that you would naturally have, of just like, Obito, you're back. Why aren't you the like hero to be that you were meant to be from the past? And you immediately get an idea about kind of what his mindset is like now. He says, you know, what could I gain from criticizing this absurd reality? I've no interest in the affairs of a world that shall soon cease to exist, because the plan is obviously this genjutsu where he reflects the Sharingan off the moon to affect the entire world, and we begin to get an idea that he hates this reality where, like, Rin isn't alive anymore. He hates this reality where, like, bad things can happen to people even if they try their best, and this sort of thing. So it's a kind of fitting one where, like, if a character like Naruto ever lost that willpower and didn't believe that he could always kind of turn things around, this is a really interesting take on, like, where you could go as, like, turning that in a more villainous direction of just like, yeah, if they lost that hope, they would kind of be like, what sort of a reality is this, that I can do everything possible and it still comes out the wrong way? And that is kind of Obito defined, basically. And, you know, we stop a lot of the personal stuff from happening as Madara arrives, and it's really interesting because, yes, he was winning in the fight against the rest of the Kage, and the rest of the Kage were struggling, but it's just like, wait, have you just finished with them off screen? Like, what happened to the other Kage? And everyone asked the question, and immediately we get the idea of just like, they're all down. Like, they all look really badly injured. I think they're more or less all presented, you know, as being alive, and that they say none of them are doing too well. He would have just said dead if they were dead. He's left them incredibly badly injured, but not dead. And we see Tsunade summons Katsuyu, and she basically wants the other Kage healed. But the problem is, Tsunade is actually the one who is the most injured, in that you can sort of see there, top half, bottom half, like, separated by a pretty big distance, and she wants the others healed first. And it's just this idea that potentially Tsunade is sacrificing herself to save the other Kage here, maybe. But I think that's just really interesting, that just there's this idea that the second Madara was in full control over himself, free from Kabuto's reanimation, he just immediately destroyed the five Kage. That there was no problem, that they just showed it off screen, and so on. And the big thing with these two meeting up is that the way Madara talks to Obito is like, oh, you finally completed this part of the plan. It hasn't gone the way you said it would. And, you know, they're talking like they really, really know each other. And it's just like, wait, how does Obito know Madara? And then it's just like, Madara's been dead as far as we've been aware for a long time. Now that the fake Madara is actually Toby, that means Madara wasn't actually alive. So how did the two of them know each other? And it's this really big, like, mystery. And it's obviously part of the big flashback that we're going to get of how, in fact, they do know each other. And the initial thing is here, real Madara mentions, what have you been up to till now? Where's Nagato? You were supposed to determine the appropriate moment and bring me back to life with Rinne Rebirth. So that's one of the most powerful powers of the Rinnegan. So it was part of Obito and the real Madara's plan to use Nagato to do this. So that means that the Akatsuki plan was actually the real Madara's plan, and Toby as the fake Madara was part of it as well. So it's a bit complicated to explain, but it works really well the way they're doing it, and he just kind of talks about how a lot of this stuff is getting messed up, and it's just that even Naruto actually is struggling against the real Madara. That the second he gets the kind of fancy Uchiha fan thing back, he's just instantly deflecting all of Naruto's attacks, and there's not a lot that Naruto can do. And it's there where we get the idea of just like Kakashi asks Obito, "What happened to you? How did you join up with him?" And we immediately cut back to the fact that, okay, immediately you get presented on this page an old but very much alive Madara Uchiha somehow saved Obito from dying after being crushed. And it's just fascinating where they go with it here, in that the reveals that are presented here are some of the best in terms of just like, no one knows this story. Only like Obito and Madara really know this story, and we're getting presented it here, and it changes how we view things, how we view this legendary battle from the past between Hashirama and Madara. And it's just presented here of just like, okay, immediately Obito wakes up and he's just like, no, I don't want to die yet. Are you the Grim Reaper? Is this the place in between life and death? And so on. And you get this dynamic throughout it that Obito initially thanks Madara, but Madara's just like, no, don't thank me just yet. I intend to have you repay your debt to me fully. That he's basically just like, I've saved you, you now have to do something for me. And it's interesting because Madara is basically the biggest villain in the entire series, and he never is overly like aggressive or mean. He's just, you get the sense that he is someone who has just completely lost any sense of faith in the actual world, in reality. That he and as we can see from modern day Obito and his view on things, they can only see the world advancing once everyone is under the ultimate genjutsu, in a world where everything can be fine, people who have died are back and happy, and nothing goes wrong, and just the idea that if you commit your mind to something, it goes right for you, and that's kind of what they're talking about here. The idea that reality is not good. As Madara says here, nothing ever goes as planned in this world. The longer you live, the more you'll realize that only pain, suffering, and futility exist in this reality. Listen, everywhere in this world, wherever light strikes, there are always shadows. So long as there is a concept of victors, the vanquished will also exist. So he's trying to kind of create a world where there are no losers in a way, and that's the ultimate genjutsu. And we're getting just this idea of like, yeah, he eventually reveals he's Madara Uchiha. We see that he's basically like hooked up to the Gedo statue by these kind of organic tubes and so on. And you get the idea of like, okay, without even him explaining it yet, the Gedo statue has obviously allowed Madara to exist for this long, but how is it part of the story that everyone knows that Hashirama killed Madara? Until very recently, most people knowing about the fake Madara, that's been the story. So how is the real Madara actually alive after all of this? And we get the explanation here of just when exactly does it happen? But before we get to how he actually explains it, there's a little bit of stuff about Madara's eyes here that are quite important, in that he says like, oh, Obito, if you want to die so badly, go ahead, because Obito is very weak even though he's still alive. Half of his body has basically been replaced with like Zetsu kind of goo that's basically there. And he says here, if you die, I'll be taking your Sharingan. And he's like, why do you want mine? You already have your own. And he kind of reveals that, no, I have one Sharingan right now. And actually, this is just a transplanted one. My actual eyes are on loan to another person. And he says that he reveals that he actually doesn't have a right eye at the moment. And this is a really interesting one, in that ultimately where this ends up going is that Madara's eyes are Rinnegan, and he's given them to Nagato, and he himself used Izanami, which destroyed his right eye in the first place, to it's quite confusing in a way, because the idea is that he used Izanagi to survive his battle with Hashirama. He then later on in life, by using the cells of Hashirama, transformed his one remaining Sharingan into a Rinnegan, which in turn brought back his other eye. So that's why there are two eyes to actually give to Nagato in the first place. And then it's just assumed that the left eye, the Sharingan that he has here, is just a random Sharingan he got from another Uchiha person. I wish we knew who it was, but we're never really told that. But it's definitely an interesting one. If you guys know anything about what the exact details are about this Sharingan that Madara has in this flashback, definitely let me know in the comments if there's any significance to it, or if it's just a random Sharingan. But still, really interesting one here, as like he gradually meets with like the different kind of Zetsus that are there, and they're in charge of him, and Madara pretty much just like sleeps for most of the time and allows Obito to basically act on his own, and it kind of ends up being part of a plan of just like Madara in a way testing Obito, and eventually like forcing him into this situation where he will destroy Obito's view of reality and get him on his side. So that's kind of what happens. He wants to get back out and kind of reunite with Kakashi and Rin especially, as we kind of learn to see, and that the crush, which we've known about for a long time, is actually just very, very meaningful to Obito as a character, and that kind of comes out, and you can see how important it is. And we see he spends a lot of time here, gradually begins to start training and getting strength into his new body, but it's still not enough to make it out of the place that Madara has effectively trapped him in. The Zetsus begin to kind of help him eventually, they kind of wrap around him and basically like, we'll control your body and make you more powerful. And as he goes to leave and actually go outside, Madara wakes up and says, you will return, and that's when I'll get your true gratitude. For like, the idea being, like, you're going to experience something very harsh with regards to reality out there, and when you return, you will thank me for coming up with this plan about how to, break reality going forward. And it turns out to be very, very true, because he immediately comes out and he realizes that Kakashi and Rin are both in danger. He's told by the Zetsu that they're both in danger, which is interesting in that very clearly the timing on this, the fact that the Zetsu have just suddenly decided to help him. That Madara is kind of just willing to let this person who ultimately is key to his plan just kind of go and potentially hurt himself. The timing is so interesting here, in terms of like, it's almost as if he knew this was going to happen. It's almost as if he set this up in a way. But it's interesting what happens. So we get the big reveal about what happened to Rin. And, we don't get the full details here. And I think that it's very purposeful and kind of well written that we don't get the full details. Just this idea that the Blood Mist Village, they are like having an issue with Konoha, and Kakashi and Rin are kind of out helping with this. Minato's on a separate mission. And all that Obito really knows about the mission is just that, okay, they're in danger. And then he comes onto the battlefield and sees this. Kakashi having lightning bladed Rin and, basically killed her. And it looking like he's just murdered her for like no apparent reason. And what happens here is that this is revealed to be the moment when both Kakashi and Obito awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan. So this explains Kakashi why he in the first place has the Mangekyo Sharingan, because the idea is that because the two of them both experienced the same powerful emotion at the death of Rin, they both awakened the Kamui Mangekyo Sharingan at the exact same time, with obviously Obito remaining awake to use that power while it happened, whereas Kakashi, whether it be because he passes out immediately afterwards or because he's not an Uchiha, he passes out and is unaware that the Mangekyo Sharingan is even a thing until much later on in his life when we actually see it. That he kind of in training discovers that, oh, the Mangekyo Sharingan is awakened, I can use it. But it's obviously established that because he is such a powerful shinobi, he was able to draw out this kind of deep down power kind of locked within the Sharingan. But what happens here is that this absolutely kind of is the destroying moment for Obito. The death of Rin at the hands of Kakashi is just this like, how could this possibly happen? Like my best friend Kakashi destroying my, the person I love, Rin. This is the worst ever thing that could happen in my reality, and it's just happened. And he basically kills all of the other shinobi that were attacking them in the first place. And it's this brutal moment of like him revealing that he has wood style now, and just the amount of blood, and it's this moment of just like his reality is so warped at this point in time. He's like, am I in hell because this is the worst thing ever to happen? It's such a kind of powerfully emotional and kind of dark scene as Kakashi's passed out, it's just Obito holding like Rin's body, kind of saying, let's create a world where you can exist again. That this is what's driving Obito at this point in time. He wants to sever the nexuses of this world. Kakashi, and he realizes that Madara is key to doing that because that's been his plan in the first place. And so what Madara said comes true when he comes back to Madara, and basically this is where the plan kind of comes to form. And he says it here, starting today you shall be the savior. So Obito is going to be the savior. And it's so important what's said here. You're inside my genjutsu, it's still a blank canvas, but I can project upon it and create whatever I want, even control them. Anything is possible. And this is the simple version of what they're going to do in the grander scale for the entire world. The scale of this jutsu, that of an entire world of dreams, is achieved by using the moon instead of our eyes. And, he basically says, let me explain, starting with the Sage of Six Paths and the 10 Tails. But we're more focusing on Obito right now, and kind of we see that, can you see them, that redhead's eyes? And we see a younger, just part of the Akatsuki, Nagato, and the reveal that, so those are Madara's Rinnegan. Those are Madara's actual eyes. He secretly transplanted them without anyone knowing when the boy was small. And that Nagato is the only person other than Madara who could actually summon the Geto statue. And it's revealed here, going kind of a flashback within a flashback, that Madara says that when he started to die of old age, where is it? He says, after fighting and obtaining Senju Hashirama's cells, I implanted them into my wound, but at first nothing happened. It was then I started to die of old age that my Rinnegan awakened. So this fits in line with what was said, I think, earlier on. It was said something like that. It was said earlier on that like it was in his later age that this happened, and it simultaneously led to the undoing of a certain seal, and then he was able to summon and extract the husk of the 10 Tails from a seal stone. And it's revealed that where he summoned the Geto statue from was the moon. So the moon suddenly has huge significance to this whole plan, because the husk of the 10 Tails, which is the thing that's going to bring the end of the world, was sealed within the moon in the first place, and now he's kind of brought it back. And it's establishing these kind of connections, like Uchiha plus Senju is more or less the kind of genetic makeup of like the Sage of the Six Paths, basically. And the overall plan starts to come into play here of just like gather the scattered tail beasts, revive Madara using Nagato's Rinne Rebirth, and that's going to be the plan. Once they have that power, they can do the genjutsu on a greater scale because of the amount of power that they have. I shall teach you the forbidden Uchiha Jutsu, the Six Paths Jutsu, plus Inton and Yonton, Shadow and Light style. And then he basically says that, here's a Zetsu, it's a reveal of Black Zetsu. This is, where does it say it? I've implanted my will. So he's basically saying that Black Zetsu is his will, and that he can just implant that into something. And the idea of what happens here is that he gives him all of the tools. He gives Obito all of the tools to become Madara. And then this is when real Madara actually dies. Part of the plan is that Madara finally, disconnects from the Geto statue and properly dies, to be resurrected at a later date by Obito, who is now completely in on the plan because his version of reality has been kind of broken and he wants things to be changed. And we see in the final chapter that he goes to basically try and get Nagato on board, and the idea that, like, he's presenting the ideas of the Akatsuki while Yahiko is still alive, and obviously Yahiko, as the leader at this point in time, refuses Madara's, or Toby, I suppose, as he's presenting himself here, he refuses this plan, but he says to Nagato before Nagato leaves, like, I'll stay here at the same time each day, you'll eventually realize it too. And obviously the idea is that Nagato comes onto their side because his version of reality is broken when Yahiko is killed. And eventually he joins up with him. We then flash forward to the moment of the Nine-Tails attack, and that day Obito went to visit Rin's grave, and he saw Kakashi at the grave there too, and he summoned the Nine-Tails at that time, and he basically just gets across that the world doesn't matter to me, and we finish with just the idea that this is the final battle. Naruto's ready to go. Obito doesn't really want to say anything to Kakashi, and he still won't fully reveal why did you ally with someone like Madara. He's like, I don't have anything to say to you. So huge reveals in this volume. Definitely, I think, one of the best written volumes in terms of, like, presenting an idea that there's still some complexity stuff to come with regards to how they ultimately do the final villain stuff in the series, but presenting immediately the overall plan up to now with Madara and Obito, plus the setup of some of the Zetsu stuff, which comes in very important. The stuff with the moon is very important. And then just overall, the fact that Obito has ended up having such an impact on this series, from stuff that has even been presented as far back as chapter 1, that the reason that Nine-Tails attack happened, the reason that Naruto was hated, the reason that Naruto was given the Nine-Tails in the first place, is kind of fundamentally because of Obito and the actions that were taken, after his supposed death. It's really amazing how all this stuff comes together and doesn't just completely fall apart. It's part of why I love these kind of longer running manga so much, in that the writers are able to make these amazing connections like that, and I think this is just one that works so well. So volume 63 of Naruto, definitely one of my favorite volumes, just because of the sheer magnitude of this reveal. It really can't be understated how big of a reveal for the series this actually is. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on volume 63. What were your thoughts when you first saw the Obito reveal? Did you see it coming really far away? Do you think it's as impactful of a reveal as I think it is? And that it's as well written as I think it is as well. But yeah, that's been the video for today. Thanks for watching, and bye.